You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I'm your happy, cheery host, Jim, and with me is my partner.
It's Rocco. What are you so happy about?
Always happy. I am happy because I made my bed this morning. That'll make more sense to the other folks in a little while. Rocco was teasing me because he kind of knows what I'm talking about today, and he's just mocking me, people. He's just so rude. He's inconsiderate. Terrible person.
You're the happy, whatever you said host, and I'm the mean, rude one.
There you go. As Rocco, the mean, rude one. That's your new title. Rocco, the mean, rude host. I'm going to print it on your business cards.
Wait till my wife listens to this podcast.
Hey, your wife actually listens to the podcast? Mine was like, dude, I hear you talk all day. The last thing I want is to listen to you for another hour. Oh, goodness. So what are we talking about? Oh, I know what we're talking about. I like the topic today. We're talking about, here's our topic for today, folks. I love the title. It's called Working from Home. Don't Screw It Up. It's a simple title, right? So I want to talk about remote work today. And it is a topic I think that, a lot of us have become intimately familiar with over the last 2 years, and not necessarily by choice. The pandemic forced companies to build remote infrastructure and online meeting capacity into their budgets, and release just a huge swath of the workforce to work from home. And let's face it, right? That wasn't management's first choice, right? Particularly not middle management. But the government forced everybody's hand. Now, we're moving back towards a situation where the requirements to work from home are fading. And there is a fast brewing struggle coming between employees and mid-level management about coming back to work in the office. I think those managers are particularly keen on the idea because there was a lot of realization in the corporate world that many of those management roles are completely unnecessary without people sitting in the office. And look, I'd personally point out if that's the case, then those managers were never really needed in the first place. But let's be, that's a personal grudge I hold from years of struggling with mid-level corporate managers in my own career that made me crazy. But the point, though, is that now it's becoming pretty apparent to those C-suite people, right, that a lot of their managers have no function without staff physically present. And to preserve their jobs, those managers are trying to force things back into that traditional work model. Now, on today's show, I do not want to go down the path of that argument. But what I do want to do is help give a little bit of ammunition to one side while staying out of the direct line of fire on this. Think of Rocco and I as the USA, and you guys listening are the Ukraine. We really want to help, but we don't want the flag that will come down on us if we really take a side here. So, Rocco, you spent a lot of years in that management role, right, before starting up here at Zentech. What are your thoughts on this, right? I mean, if you were still a manager, right, where we used to work and not an owner, do you think you would view things differently than you do?
It's hard to say. I personally, I've always kind of struggled with, there's that personal component of this, all right, and then there's the manager component, and then there's the owner component, and I'm one of those people that I want everybody to like me. I have been like that, and I don't know if it's because of my disability or what,
and yet you're still the grumpy, rude one. How is that?
So I don't know. So
it's just me. I bring out the worst in you.
Yep. So so I kind of I've always you struggle between the level of trust that you need to have with people and being too easy and then being too hard on people. So it's not it's not a balance. It's not an easy balance, you know, but we're going to get deeper into the discussion here. But the thing is that you don't need to be too easy of a manager or too difficult of a manager because of the technology that's out there today. There are ways to track people's performance and what they're doing and whether they're really being productive.
Yeah.
That's so.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? That you really don't need to change who you are, or how you manage, or how you work. It's a slightly different process, but holding people accountable to do their jobs, and giving them the flexibility to do it in a way that works best for them. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think they work well together. It's a good point. So look, Zentech, right, was founded as what Rocco and I call a digital company, right? From its inception, right? We have no central office, and we likely never will. Our employees all work from home, always have, and we were using screen shares and desktop conferencing and online meeting for years before words like COVID and Zoom and Teams even entered into the English language. In my previous work life, personally, I'd gotten at least high enough up on the food chain in the corporate world so that I was working a hybrid work week long before there was even a name for that. Um, and I saw the personal and the social benefits, right, of not commuting 3 or more hours every day, right, and the stress reduction and not having to sit and smell, my coworkers microwaving leftover fish for lunch, right, or having, oh my God, it was the worst, or have 30 people ask me, oh, I just have one quick question, but every hour on the hour, and Rocco worked with me directly in those days, right, and he saw that the production levels that I achieved from home and that it really never impacted the work. So, when we went out on our own, he was at least open, right, to that idea of a purely digital company, right? Though, like you were saying earlier, right, the idea of unsupervised workers did make him a little bit nervous at first. And if I remember correctly, right, he was you were worried about folks, napping on your dime. So, I mean, has that changed for you, Rocco? I mean, do you still worry that much? I mean, does it still make you nervous, or do you feel better about our remote work plan here on the long term?
No, I definitely feel better about it. You know, as I see the way that people work, that our employees work and the output that they put out, it proves. Look, most people are responsible adults, right? I mean, they have jobs, they have families, they have other responsibilities. So, there's a level of trust that you need to have. And, are there people that I still worry about sometimes that I second guess? Sure.
You
But
mean besides
again,
me?
yeah, besides you, yeah. But again, the technology and the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, look, I think that pretty much everybody who got the opportunity to work remotely over the last few years has seen, right, the personal and the family benefits that it brings, and they aren't really happy with the idea of returning to an office. Even the folks who are willing to compromise and go to a hybrid schedule, right, where they kind of they work a few days from home and they work a few days in the office, they're doing that as more of a compromise and not from any real desire to go back and be part of the team, right? No matter what crap you hear your management spouting in that company newsletter, nobody cares about that team. um, so the question then that I really want to address today is, how do you individually keep from being pulled back into that dreaded office environment? How do you convince, right, the powers that be that you're a more productive, that you generate more money, that you're far more reliable an employee working remotely than you ever could be in that office environment? And I think the answer is simple to identify, but it is not so easy to implement. You simply have to be more, and I'm stressing the word more, productive at home than you were at the office, and that's it, right? But how do you do that though? Right? How do you make sure that you aren't falling behind expectations? Right? Getting sloppy with your work, or developing a reputation as unreliable and lazy and not a quote unquote team player when you're sitting at home, right, unshaven, unshowered, and in your robe and slippers. Yeah, and the truth is, you can't. Not if you're the person I just described. The fly in the ointment, I guess, of the remote work dream is that you still have to work, and you still have to do that professionally. The idea of, I'm going to sleep in late, then I'm going to watch a movie, and then, I'll get to my work around 11 o'clock or so and crank it out. That is doomed to fail. And if you try it, you'll be back in your office chair smelling that microwave fish stink, right? The moment that your company can make it happen. And I'm not telling you guys this as a business owner or a middle manager. I'm talking to you direct as a guy who had to learn the hard way how to work remotely on my own over a decade ago. All right. So that's what I want to get into today. So let's take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor. And when we get back, I want to really talk about the daily how-to of successfully working from home. So stand by, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, Rocco. So we are sponsoring ourselves yet again today. What is it we want to talk about?
We're going to talk about me today, Jim.
No one wants to talk about you. Not even you.
Oh, fine. Let's talk about Zentek Tech Blocks.
Awesome. I like Zentek Tech Blocks. Zentek Tech Blocks are prepaid support hours that let you call on Zentek's experienced technical staff to address all your support questions, problems, help you with workflows and standards, really anything you need on the technology side. We're here to provide the support you need so that your most talented people aren't being dragged into helping everybody else in your company instead of working on the billable jobs that you need them focused on. All right. So Zentek Tech Blocks are available in multiple sizes. We sell them in 5-hour, 10-hour, 20-hour, and 40-hour prepaid support blocks. And if you're interested and you need that sort of help, Rocco, how do they reach out to us?
Yeah, hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net. Give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, Zentek Tech Blocks, the vital support that your people need exactly at the moment that they need it. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking about working from home and basically how to not screw up a good thing. And in this half of the show, I want to get into some of the most important lessons that Rocco and I have learned, right? Both personally and as managers, with regard to working from home. And look, I know that a lot of our listeners have been doing this for a while now, but the work processes and the output that companies have kind of been forced to tolerate during the pandemic because the government made them are disappearing, right? And look, you're going to be back under Bill Lumbergh's thumb real quick if you guys aren't careful, and yeah, that won't be great, right? So the first thing that I want to point out is that what you need to do is put together a workspace, right? You need to have a consistent, private, quiet spot that is dedicated to work and nothing else, right? Working on the couch, in front of the tube, it is not going to fly moving forward. Look, I understand. I know everybody out there doesn't have a spare room that you get to use as an office. But even if you set up a folding table, right, with your laptop and your monitor and your phone and everything and a decent chair, right, it's going to make a huge difference here. If you don't have a formal work location, your brain doesn't feel like it's actually working, and your output is going to reflect that, right? Look here. A half-assed workspace generates half-assed work. That's wisdom from Jim that you guys can all count on, and feel free to reuse my quote there, right? That's how I feel about it. So, Rocco, with our employees, right? Do you find that to be true? Do they all have dedicated workspace, and do you think it has an impact on their performance and output?
Yeah, they do. They do have a dedicated area, and in fact, we actually put it in our offer letters that they should have a dedicated, quiet workspace. I mean, we're obviously in communication with customers all day long, depending upon your role, and it's like you can't be on a Teams call in the middle of your kitchen when your 2-year-old's running around. It just doesn't work that well. So, so we do require it, and they do it, and it does work. I mean, they're dedicated. It's their work spot. It's our work spot as well. So they do.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's really important, and it ties into my next point, Rich, which I'll sum up what I think is the most important thing that I've learned about working from home in one word, and the word's attitude. Your personal attitude, it's going to have a really drastic impact on your productivity.
You got
Uh,
a problem?
I got all kinds of problems. I got attitude. I'm from Jersey, of course. I got attitude. That's what we do here. All right, now this guy. um, but look, no, I really do think, right? If you're at home and you're tired and you're bored and you're moping about and miserable, that absolutely shows in your performance, right? And if you do that, you're going to get pulled really quickly back into the office, and you're going to have a reason to be bored and moping and miserable, but you'll just have to do it there. And it's really easy to get pulled into the doldrums when working from home, right? And humanity's own adherence to Newton's first law of motion, all right, can destroy the dream of working from home permanently. So hey, Rocco, test knowledge test. What does Newton's first law of motion say?
Duh.
Uh, yeah, nice job there. Ruining my whole bit. It says very simply that bodies at rest tend to stay at rest, and bodies in motion tend to stay in motion. Simplified, not a direct quote, but that's the idea, right? If you just sit and don't want to do anything at home, it gets worse as you go. And I learned this the hard way almost 15 years ago, when I first started working hybrid for an architectural firm, because I had some long-term family illness issues going on that I had to take care of at home. And I used to work from 5 in the morning until 10 in the morning in the office every day, and then I was could work the rest of the day from home. And at first it went great, right? The first 3 months, not a problem at all. It was fantastic. And after that, though, it started sliding. I started skipping days here and there when I wouldn't actually do any work when I got home, and then I started getting back to doing that work like later and later in the day. I'd come home and I'd watch TV for a few hours before I'd do something productive. And my project delivery time started to slip, and then I started blaming, all these, unfortunate events, happened at home. That's why this didn't get done. It was kind of like a dog ate my homework kind of thing. Um, and, blaming that for why those things happen. And hey, does that sound familiar to anybody who is listening right now? If it does, think about it. And honestly, I'll tell you that what saved my butt from either getting pulled back into the office or just flat out fired was a really solid boss of mine, and he warned me that this slacking had been noticed by senior management. And he had actually been tasked to track my productivity, right? Because there were some comments and some complaints. And luckily the guy was a friend of mine, and he was really sympathetic to my personal issues. And he gave me 2 weeks to square myself away before he started doing his, formal tracking, right, and testing exactly what I was doing, how things were going. And I had to lock myself back into a really strict work schedule and a really tight work environment at home, PDQ, right? And I did, and I never deviated from that routine again. And when his report went in, because he did have to do the report and everything, my numbers were actually the best in the entire company. And I made sure to keep them that way. So that topic never came up again. And then by the time that Rocco and I started working together a few years later, I already had that remote work process kind of down, right? And I don't think it was ever an issue for us when we worked together. Um, so, Rocco, kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, right? And I don't want to frighten our employees who are listening or anything, but we do keep an eye on their output, right? And what do you recommend that folks look for on the management end of things to make sure that their remote workers are doing what they should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, for one, like I was saying before, you can be a manager without hounding people, right? What are you doing right now? Kind of thing. As a manager, look at the work. I mean, use the technology that's at your fingertips to see, are people being productive? Look at the work that they've accomplished, and be fair with it, right? I mean, yeah, that this amount of work, could have been done in this amount of hours. Are they being responsive to customers' needs? Are they picking up the phone when you call them? Um, you use the technology that's there to monitor, what people are doing. Um, so that's the kind of thing that could be done. And um, I mean, I think that's I don't know that there's more to say beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only
Uh,
thing that I would add to that is you do want to shift your mindset a little bit. I think there's a little leftover, coming from the manufacturing background that this nation had. I think there's still a little mindset left in our culture that, hey, you're being paid to work every minute of every hour like you were on an assembly line. And that's not the case, particularly when you get into, design and construction and high end technology. You're being paid for production and output, and I think you have to shift that. And it's okay if, at the end of a day, your employees have done more work than they would have than you expected, or what you could have reasonably expected in the office, or the same. If they're at that level, do you really care if they did it in 4.5 hours instead of the 8 year? You know what I'm saying? It's about the output to my mind, and not the time. And that I think is something that's in our American culture that I think we need to shift as managers. So, um,
yeah, it is about the output, and I guess the other thing that I was thinking of is also, from the management perspective, be a manager. Don't just decide to check up on things, once a week, or look at whether something was done a month after it should have been done. I mean,
yeah,
be responsible as a manager yourself, right? To make sure that stuff is getting done. Don't be lazy yourself,
there you go. Yeah, part of this is on the manager too. Yeah, you've got to do your work as well.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Um, all right, so I guess kind of the question, right, is how do you keep your mindset in that work arena, right, when you're at home with a million comfortable distractions? Well, I'll tell you how to make it happen, right? I treat it like any other work environment, but with a few extra steps that kind of keep my emotional and mental state semi-stable. I'm never truly stable. I'm only semi-stable at best. For starters, I have a set time that I work every day, just like I did when I was in an office, right? I log in, I check my emails, or start taking meetings, making Rocco miserable. I do that at the same time every single day. Right? And that instantly, I think, starts your brain functioning in work mode. I like I said, I have a dedicated workspace that I do 100% of my work in. I never ever work on the couch or in the recliner. I'm also lucky enough to have an actual office in my house, right, where I can close the door for privacy and focus, which definitely helps. I will say another important thing is no TV. I don't even have one in my office. It's a tempting distraction, excuse me, that you really need to avoid. I turn on the radio if you want to stream, music on iHeart or Spotify. If you want to listen to a great podcast, like the Cattle Call. Those are great tools to keep your mind from drifting, or help you stop you from feeling like isolated or cut off from the world. But TV is the death of productivity. Turn off that boob tube and keep it off. Um, I also recommend, and this is a personal thing, right? I avoid earbuds and headphones, right? Unless you work in a loud, busy home and you really need them for work. Music is fine, right, to listen to, but I think that plugging in takes you to more of a relaxation mindset, right? And it can make you miss calls, avoid, you didn't notice emails and so on. When you get those earbuds in and you're jamming out to your favorite tunes. Keep the music on, right? But through the speakers and at a low level, just like you would in an office environment. And here's another thing, right? I've also found that an office chair completely changes my mindset. I have tried folding chairs and dining room chairs and stools, and yeah, I've just found that I cannot fully focus unless I'm in an actual office chair. Maybe it's just a quirk of mine. And look, mine's not some expensive executive chair or anything. It's one that I picked up for like 150 bucks at Staples a couple of years ago. It's comfortable, but it's not something that I want to sleep in. And I find that it makes a huge difference in keeping me working well. Um, I also try to end my workday at the same time every day. Though honestly, as a small business owner and having Rocco behind me with his whip, that doesn't really happen as often as I wish. And Rocco's far worse at it though. He works till like 10, 11 at night. He's insane. But look, if you can do that though, I think it can really help ward off a lot of the mental and emotional issues that can come up from sitting alone in an office all day. Right? Knowing that there's a fixed time that it's going to stop and that you can just walk down the hall and see your loved ones and have a little bit of fun, I think it makes it a lot easier. So Rocco, what is your office setup like? And do you follow that same type of format that I do? Yeah, I know for a fact, like I said, that you absolutely work way too late every single night.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's the workload. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I have a separate office, with a desk and and a desk with plenty of room now. And I find that even that makes a big difference, right? Don't have a cluttered desk. You know, don't have your personal stuff all over and your work stuff. I mean, just have a nice if you have the space and the ability, have a nice dedicated desk that you work at. Um, and so that's a big thing. It does make a difference, like you say.
Yeah, it changes your mindset. All right, so I'm going to point out two more things that I think are absolutely vital to long-term remote work. And I know that some of you listening are going to think I'm crazy. And just trust me on these, right? And then, look, Rocco's already started mocking me on these. But look, first, you need to dress the part, right? You need to shower, shave, and dress just like you would if you were going into the office. Right? And I mean every single day, not just when you have a Zoom call with the boss, right? Shorts, t-shirts, slippers, sweatpants, they're the worst things that you can put on. They completely change your brain into a mindset of laziness and relaxation, right? Look, if you're dressed for a day at the beach or like you like to curl up with a good book, that is what your brain is going to want and expect from you. And yeah, I'm not saying you need to put on a suit or anything here, right? But a pair of jeans or khakis, some shoes, and a sweater or a comfortable button-up shirt, it's going to help you feel that it's work time, right? And it's going to increase your focus. That simple act of dressing like a responsible adult each day will help you behave like one, at least for the work process, right? I don't make any promises about your regular behavior. But I even fell back into that sweatpants rut during the pandemic. And I actually had to force myself back out of it because I found that I was just dragging and tired and burnt out from working just by lunch every day. And the simple act of putting on big people clothes completely changed that. Right? When I'm dressed, I feel like a professional doing professional things, even if I'm only working 10 steps away from my bed. Rocco, are you rocking the shorts and ripped t-shirts most day at home, or do you find that dressing a little more formally helps you to focus?
No, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't. I do work in sweats and a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or obviously depending upon the time of the year. I don't. If we have meetings, where your camera's on, obviously I dress nicer, but I don't dress professionally. And not that I think you're wrong, Jim. I mean, I agree with you. It's just everybody's different. I'm personally, I think I'm a lot more disciplined than a lot of people are. I mean, and you're going to get to this other point, but I work out, 3 mornings a week, and I try to walk either during lunch or during the evening. And I've done that since the beginning, since I first started. Actually, before um, I even started working from home, I'd work out in the morning 3 days a week, and so I'm pretty structured, pretty disciplined like that. I'm not, like crazy army structure, but I mean, yeah, I'm pretty disciplined. But I agree with you that dressing right, you even at home makes a difference.
Yeah, no, and like I said, everybody's different, right? And you got to find what works best for you. And look, I'll say the second point that I want to make here that's vital to me, and this is a point that I call "make your dang bed." It's not just making your bed every day, though that is actually part of it. You do want to do that. It's really about starting each day, right, by taking care of yourself. That's what Rocco was talking about, right? You got to prep yourself both mentally and physically for your at-home workday. A trap that I fell into very early on, and that I still stumble into now when things get busy and I'm overwhelmed, is to ignore the basics of getting up and getting going in a healthy way. Trust me when I tell you that ignoring your own health will destroy your work quality and performance faster than anything else. So, what do I mean by make your dang bed? For starters, make your bed every day. It is really easy to let small things like that go, all right, when we're working from home, and it actually nags at the back of your mind that that's not done. It makes you feel lazy, like you're skipping things, and you kind of get in that set like, it doesn't matter, and then other small things don't really matter either, right? And that will show in your work, and that's really the kind of the kiss of death for what we're talking about here. Every day, right, we need to perform the basic ablutions that make us part of the human race, right? Bed making, teeth brushing, bathing, shaving, dressing, having breakfast, all of the things that you would do if you were heading into an office. And I'm also gonna throw the one more thing out here, like Rocco said, and I'll even say it takes a lot of chutzpah coming from someone with a gut the size of a small car dangling over his belt, like I do. But you also need to exercise every morning, and this is one that I struggle with constantly, right? And I've only really been able to get consistent with it over the last few months, honestly. And I found that for me, at least, doing the exercise before work instead of after, it completely changes my entire mental state for the day. Um, Even though it means I have to get up an hour earlier now, right? I find that, taking a good long walk and doing some stretching before work, it just makes me much more relaxed and content working from home than almost anything else. I tried for years to, like Rocco does, right? I'd go, work out at lunch or after work so that I didn't have to get up early because I hate getting up early. And honestly, it did nothing for my personal outlook, and I always faded out. I stopped doing it after a few weeks. I couldn't do it at lunch because I got tied up in a meeting, or I was just too busy today. I didn't have time, and at the end of the day, honestly, just too tired. Uh, you know, Work tires you out, right? Even from home, it's still work, right? Even from home. And for a fat man like me to go and work out after 12 hours of working, it was not something that I was looking forward to. It was something I was dreading, right? And like I said, now, right, I get up, I go take a walk, I shower, I shave, I make the bed, I dress nicely every day before work, and my attitude and performance is dramatically better, right? Better attitude equals better work, right? Which means you're not getting pulled back into the land of red staplers and no birthday cake. Um, so, Rocco, what else do you do to keep the work at home process stable and productive?
Um, I think we've covered a lot of it, but I think it's important to take a break. I mean, take a break, go down the steps, breathe some fresh air. You know, um, you're not, don't take work so seriously that you can't even, take a bathroom break or go get some water. So I think that's an important thing. And you know uh, have a conversation with a coworker. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and say, hey, how are things going, as if you were in the office. um but also be responsible, right? I mean, be a responsible adult. Realize that you do have a job, and don't overstep, like Jim is saying, don't overstep the privilege that you have of being able to work from home. If you're supposed to be working certain hours, be there. Don't it's one thing if there's an emergency, and that happens to all of us. But don't abuse your privileges, because they're going to be taken away if you abuse them. So um, that's what comes to mind at the moment,
Yeah.
Jim.
No, and absolutely, I agree with you 100%, right? I mean, at the end of the day, being able to work from home, it's going to be your responsibility, right? Your frame of mind, your attitude and emotional state are reflected in your work and in your correspondence and communication with your coworkers, right? And if you feel good, your work is going to show that. And if you feel crappy, you're going to generate crappy work. And look, the Lumbergs of the world are just waiting for an excuse to pull you back into the office, right, where they can hover in your cubicle door with their world's greatest boss coffee mugs and make sure you're getting those TPS reports done. All right, so don't let the Lumbergs win, folks. Fight the good fight by making your life better so they have no excuse to make it worse. All right. So with that, we're going to get out of here and let you guys get back to making your dang bed. We're out of here, folks. We'll catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.